Hey everybody, welcome to Squash Talk. I'm Pat, and tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're having maybe potentially a little bit of technical issues, so bear with us. Hopefully it'll work out. There's a little bit of lag, but I think we've kind of dialed that cadence in. Um, what I want to talk about tonight is kind of reaches out into what is this Bigfoot phenomenon? And and lately, I've been sort of swimming in the waters of the skeptic world. I've engaged with them. I've watched them, and so I've paid attention to what they have to say and kind of their weird reaction to it, um, which is very armchair and very distant. So what I mean by that is you have skeptics over here that have absolutely nothing to do with the Bigfoot phenomena, and they're trying to figure out what it is on the fly for whatever reason because it interests them in that moment. It was a topic of the evening, or they were asked to be, on a debate, whatever. Um, and one of the things that keeps coming up is this manifestation of folklore. And so I want to dive into that specifically tonight, and then kind of carry on from there. But so that's kind of where we're going to start off tonight. And so I decided, man, like who better to bring in than Patrick Vaughn? He's had multiple Bigfoot encounters. He's seen them. He seems to have developed some kind of like analytical understanding of them, albeit not to the level that we can just run to science with it, but still, it goes beyond your typical anecdotal sort of stuff. And by the way, there's 1,000 people behind him that are either similar or a notch or two down on the on that kind of cog of understanding and encounters. But anyway, I brought Patrick in tonight. He assures me that he has no bouts of schizophrenia, or that he's ever been deemed mentally unhealthy by the state. In fact, just the opposite. And so he seems of sound mind. And so welcome to the show tonight, Patrick. How you doing?
Hello, Pat. How you doing? Yeah, I've actually been through court-appointed psychiatric evaluations due to family law and custody issues with my son, and I've been deemed twice sane, solid, mentally able to carry out uh, everything I need to carry out as a person. So, and before we get into all that, I want to congratulate you for growing your channel and doing something different, because I have a lot of people contact me about. I'm so glad y'all are doing something different, and you've grown your channel 30% in just a few weeks. So I want to say congratulations on that, you know. And I also have people contact me and they're all, well, I'm not sure about this avenue you're going down, and then other people are saying, well, I'm so glad you're going down this avenue. And the thing is that I got caught into something thinking, I used to watch a show about finding Bigfoot. And first I thought maybe it was actually this actually entertainment. And so whenever I watch shows, I have to switch it in my mind to either I'm looking at someone as actually
Okay.
and asking.
Yeah, we have an audio problem, dude. Um,
Just a second.
Can you turn your video off and go audio only and see how that works?
Just a second.
All right. Ooh. You talk for me, bud? Oh, there he is.
Hello.
All right. Keep talking. Finish your thought.
Testing, testing.
Okay.
All right. I was going to congratulate you on growing your channel 30% in just the last few weeks. But I've had people contact me about, well, I'm not sure about this avenue, or this avenue is great. But the thing is you know, I got caught up in watching a show about finding Bigfoot, and I had to quickly understand that this was about entertainment and not actually someone, you know, they're not actually, you know, diving in deeply into it. And so I've had to gear my mind up and understand that when I watch this show, they're pushing for the answers. What is it going to take to do this? And they're really pressing forward, even though all the answers aren't there. You know, and they're trying to find the right questions to ask. And then another show is about entertainment or feel good. You know, and I'm not being derogatory towards any type of show. I like my serious shows and I like my entertainment. You know, matter of fact, there's a YouTube platform that has a huge following that I love coming home to and plugging into because it's entertaining, you know, and that's what I take it as, you know. So, you know, it takes my critical mind and gives it a rest, you know. So I just wanted to congratulate you on doing something different and growing your channel, you know, 30% in just a few weeks, you know. So, yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And by the way, your audio is cleared up now. Hopefully we'll keep it that way so we can keep having this conversation. Otherwise, it'll just be me opining to death, and everyone's sick of that, right? So yeah, man. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate that, and I am trying to do something different. I feel. I admit that openly, without any regrets. Go ahead.
Well, as long as we can keep an objective narrative about us, you know, and I like being objective almost to being abstract, where I can actually take this scenario here and bring it over here to this other scenario and dissect it objectively and almost abstractly. You know, that's what I like to do, you know, because, you know, there are some feelings out there. So, but I think it's a great direction as far as getting down to the truth. And reality is what I serve. I don't serve entertainment. I don't serve science. I serve the reality of it. And I see so much bias, like what you're talking about. The bias, and it's understandable because anytime we, you know, interject ourselves into something, we take flaws with us. You know, I'm flawed. You're flawed. All of us are. You know, so we have to understand that. And so you got science people that are on the same level as the ultra Bigfoot people. You know, these really exist. These really exist, and I've never seen one. Well, these never existed, and and I have no proof that they don't exist. You know, so yeah, you know,
it's frustrating. I'm trying to develop the best way to frame it, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's an uphill battle. I'm not going to lie. Number one, I have to actually convince people that I'm an actual skeptic, you know, but I choose to swim these waters. And oh, hey, look, guys, there's something here worth looking at. It's an uphill battle, but I'm gonna keep my internet. Let's talk about seeing a Bigfoot and having what people call a Bigfoot encounter, if you will. And let's talk about that a little bit and somewhat methodically, at least for a few minutes, if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
So, so the first thing I want to ask you is, roughly how many times have you seen a Bigfoot that you think you've seen a Bigfoot?
I've laid eyes on a Bigfoot 8 times. I'm looking
Okay,
at it and it's looking at me. Now,
okay. Is there
that
is there any is there any way what kind of experience do you have in the woods? Is there any way you mistook that for a person?
um is my audio clear?
Yep, your audio's clear.
Okay. Um well, it's kind of like, it's not like it is. Um had I seen a, a great ape, a gorilla, a silverback, if I'd have seen an orangutan, if I'd have seen some kind of monkey or a kangaroo,
Hmm.
I certainly would have been able to say, "Hey, look, I got a gorilla in my in these woods," or an orangutan or a kangaroo. But that was not what was there. Okay, I saw what was there, and I'm a sane person, and I cannot explain why it was there. It was there, and and the very first time I had a real issue with that.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a minute. Um, okay, so in all of your visual encounters of a Bigfoot, which your claim is 8, and by the way, I'm not grilling you. I'm trying to frame
I don't
things
mind.
as yeah, as appropriate as and reasonable and
Hmm.
fair as possible. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So so in your 8 times of seeing a Bigfoot in the woods, um, you're saying that you're not misidentifying the species. You don't think it was a person. So let me ask you this: do you think it could have been some kind of hallucination?
I have considered that the very first time. That's what I researched, was hallucination, mass hysteria, things like that. And I actually put that to bed with that as an unexplained weird thing that happened. But the problem with, did you hallucinate this? I've had multiple peoples at an encounter site, and all of us must have hallucinated the same thing because we all saw the same thing. You know, so and that was kind of an important thing for me for my third encounter, because my first two encounters, my first encounter was it didn't happen, and I'm gonna debunk them. The second encounter, actually, first encounter it didn't happen. The second one, this is just a phenomenon that will make you think Bigfoot is in the woods or some hairy thing is tracking you down. It's a phenomenon, and that I'm gonna debunk it using knock, taking the knock away from it. Because if I can take knock away from it, then Bigfoot doesn't exist. And so I used knock and actually had one walk into the fire. And three of us are watching this. it came up to the fire. And so, and we left, we got in the truck, freaked out. And I'm like, did you see that? Yeah. Did you see that? Yeah. So I don't believe it was a hallucination. I think multiple people seeing it would take that claim away.
Could you clarify? You said walk into the fire. I'm not sure which. I could take that a
Firelight.
couple of different ways. The fire
Fire,
light.
yeah, walk out of the woods, out of the brush, into the firelight where the firelight is reflecting off of her, and you're
Right.
seeing it. You're
Okay.
seeing it. The person next to you is seeing it, and this person can't even articulate her speech. She's a blah, a blah, a blah, and I had to tell her, hush, you're not making any sense. And I turned and looked at the boy. I said, okay, boy, you called it up here. How long you want to dance with it? And the boy said, let's get in the truck. I said, good idea. You know.
Okay.
So it's not a hallucination. It's there, and what that particular encounter, what that set was, what's knocking out in those woods. And I've had multiple people experience knocks with me from out in the woods. Because my biggest question was, what's knocking in the woods? I thought it was a known animal doing unknown action after dark. That was my theory, my hypothesis and theory that I was testing. I got debunked. It was not a known animal. It's a known animal to First Nations and other people, but not to me as a modern man.
Right.
It is a Bigfoot person, individual, thing, being that stepped out of the woods into the firelight, and we looked at it.
Okay.
So my anxiety's building.
Yeah.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. It's all right.
Um, and
I was
and
I was
that's the
back there for a
thing, isn't
moment.
it? I let me ask you this. Uh, so I would say I would think that you got a pretty decent look at it if it revealed itself that much, exposed itself into the light of the fire. You got a pretty decent look at it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that what you saw meets our definition of a primate? Physically,
We are
physical appearance.
primates. We are primates.
Correct. Mhm.
So yes, I could say that it would meet the definition of a primate. It is not an animal. Okay. It has a thought process. It's intelligent. It's been proven over again to me how intelligent they are. And I don't think I've seen their limit. It's just the limit of what I can throw out there that they can, beat. But yeah.
So, would you think this a fair statement uh, if I said there's a reason we don't have them in zoos?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been trying since 2017. 2017, I first designed the experiment light sound, which is an experiment designed to pull. It's a mixture of primitive skills and modern technology, where it's kind of like a dirt hole set. If anybody's a trapper and knows what a dirt hole set is, you dig a hole down, and you set a steel trap, and you put a bait under the pan, and you cover it lightly with some foliage, and anything reaching in there, you got it. Well, the dirt hole set I extrapolated from, I named it Light Sound, which is a dirt hole with a radio and a camera, so that anything that could walk up and look over in the hole to see what the noise is from the radio would be exposed to the camera. And I've had them beat that. They point the camera out. They pick the camera out. They avoid the camera. And I've had them walk up to a recorder and tap on the recorder. You can hear bipedal walking up to a recorder, tap on it, walk off. It actually grabbed my radio at one point, walked off with my radio for 11 and a half hours and brought it back. You hear it on the audio, walking back and drop it back in the hole. I've been experimenting with these things. And I have not yet got to get it on camera. You know, the only time I've been able to get close to, only twice I set out to accomplish something that I accomplished. The other times were accidental. They come about in ways that I didn't plan. You know, and and so it's not like I have a great success rate. It's just when you're out there researching in the areas they're in, and you cause concern for them about what your presence means to their survival. And if you have empty hands, they'll double back and check you out, and they can come in and just walk in front of you and look. But it's not like they stand there. They'll get between a couple trees, look at you. You may have 3 to 5 seconds, and they're gone. You know, it's a very difficult. You know, elusive does not even scratch the surface of what these beings are.
Hmm. Would you say it's fair? Would you say it's fair to say that they can set boundaries at will with people out in those environments?
They do have boundaries. Well, okay. First off, their area they have a spot in the woods picked out that man doesn't go. You know, and a lot of people think, well, it's a national forest. We go everywhere. There's a place, but there's elevation behind a water barrier that people don't wade across. People like comfort. You know,
Yes.
your average person to a wildlife management area or a national forest, they get on a trail, they go do a specific thing. You know, I don't care if it's hunting or fishing or hiking. They stay on a trail, they go to the place, they do a specific thing, and then they leave. And these beings recognize that as an acceptable behavior. They'll share that area. You know, that's the shared area. They have their area in elevation behind a water barrier or some kind of natural barrier that keeps you from just traipsing in on them. You know, they have that area, and you have your home. Everything else is shared. And so when you go into their area, they have a much larger personal space than you do because of their greater eyesight, sense of smell, and their speed. Okay, you're not going to get around them unless they allow you around them, or it's just by sheer accident. You know, most of my visuals were I'm fishing, and the juvenile that's in my area will come walk up. You know, and he likes watching me fish. You know, it's weird. The ones that I've gotten on expedition is because I kept pushing them because they're there. I tracked them. They don't know I tracked them, but I tracked them. I know where they're at. I know what area they're coming from and going to, and I go in between those two areas with a cameraman and a person with me, and I push them until they understand that I know you're there, and I'm causing your concerns about what my presence means to your survival, and then that's when they'll open their mouth up and go, "Roar!" and rip something off and throw it at you. So,
And would it be fair to say that that's a boundary they just created right then and there?
well, their boundary is your weaknesses. They use your weaknesses and their strengths. Their strength is they can see you 400 yards in a rainstorm on a moonless night at night. That's a strength of them. You can imagine what they can do in the daytime. All right, when you're in the woods, you have maybe 100 yards. You know, they're much more stealthy. They use topography. You know, they're going to stay out away from you. That's your boundary. You don't know that you're pushing the boundary. They're in control of it on how close you get to them.
Sure, but I'm wondering. It just seems to me that they could kind of like that boundary could be fluid. That they could sort of bust it out on anybody whenever they want to. I.e., the kind of anecdotal accounts we hear of people being escorted out of the woods. So not just your own experience, but other things maybe similar that you've heard, especially the escorting. That seems like a you need to get the hell out of here right now kind of thing.
I've been escorted, and you know, there's a lot of the behavior I don't understand. It could be because it could be multiple things. You know, I was escorted out on one trip because I was in an area. They didn't particularly like me being in that area. They came up on me. I didn't come up on them. I was fishing, and they come up in the area. The juvenile checked me out, and he went out around from me across the water and tore down a tree. Okay, I decided it was time to leave. I picked my stringer of bass. I got about 40 pounds of bass on the stringer, and we're walking out, and I was escorted all the way out. Now, could you tell me if it's because they didn't like me being in that area, or it's because they wanted to fish?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was going to ask you, did you make it out of there with your fish,
Well,
or did you drop them and run?
no, I had a person with me, and I told she says, "What are we going to do if they come up, closer?" I said, "I'm going to throw these fish at them, and we're just going to keep walking and smiling."
Right.
You know, but they're not thieves. I tracked for a couple of ladies doing an experiment, and they left food out. And they didn't take the food until the food was almost so rotten it was fixing to go bad, and then they took it because something might as well make use of it. That was their reasoning. I felt personally that was their reasoning, tracking and being involved in that experiment. Now you leave a marble out there, they love a marble. You know, you put a dozen marbles out there, they'll leave out a couple at a time until there aren't any.
Ooh, hey, how do we get a GPS tracker into a marble? Maybe we'll ask Steve about that. That sound that would be a good experiment, huh?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had a failed experiment myself. And it takes weeks to months for me to set up an experiment. I don't just walk in the woods and say, "Oh, this looks like a good place." I spend weeks and months. As a matter of fact, this place I went, I've tracked it. This third time in there in about a year and a half, and even still, I have to do my research and track every time I go in because everything changes. Where they're at, what they're using at the time of the year it's at, changes. And so the only place active I found with their tracks was down by a river. And so, I thought I had them and I didn't. That's the way it goes sometimes.
Well, I hear you there. So let me go back to the folklore thing, which is kind of how I titled the video. So I don't want to be like total clickbait here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just ask you personally. How you feel about that, which is something I've noticed in the skeptic world, especially the armchair skeptics who, again, have nothing to do with the Bigfoot phenomenon at all. They just will opine on it for whatever reason, just because they're there, or because they love to, talk, spread their theories about what explains Bigfoot. And the one that keeps coming up a whole lot is that somehow ancient or even current folklore or a culture manifests itself into people actually seeing Bigfoot, or maybe they're trying to say lie about it or talk themselves into it. But what folklore could ever explain actually looking at that Bigfoot in the firelight that you saw?
Well, as far as the folklore goes, I looked into all that way out early years ago. The dragon phenomenon. Why is it so many cultures have a dragon in it, or a depiction of a dragon? Well, if you get to looking at the culture of the dragon, there's a statue of it, there's artwork of it. It's not drawn on a cave depicted with other known animals. Now, here in the Americas, with the First Nations, there are elk and bear and coyote and Bigfoot all drawn on cave walls all together. Okay? It wasn't a form of artwork or imagination like the dragon was. That's for me. That's the research I've done. So First Nations folklore is based on them believing that is a real animal, just like the bear and the elk and the coyote they drew on those cave walls. Okay. Now the research I did, um, it came out as, and this is word of mouth from Native American people, and it may be just that, I don't know, But when I did my research back then, if I remember it correctly, uh, a war broke out between the nations and these beings because of the death of a child. And everywhere the nations found these beings at, they went in and waged war and killed it. No matter how many braves were killed, no matter how many warriors died, they went in and killed this thing. And they continued doing that for generations until these beings went and lived separate of man. Okay, then white man shows up on the prairie and is hearing all these stories and calls it a pagan myth. And it's been a pagan myth till this day.
Is it a pagan myth to you?
I've seen it. I don't know if it's Christian or pagan, but I've seen it.
Right. Okay. So, that's actually an interesting take, especially when we talk about folklore or stories, you know, um, that's a little bit different take. And, but yeah, I guess my direct question to you would be, you know, is there any amount of stories that have ever been told throughout human history for the past 1,000 years that would lead you to see a Bigfoot standing in your campsite in the firelight?
No, because, I read the books of Bigfoot out of curiosity, I guess, as a kid in the library, because I had some time between the end of school and when I got picked up. And there was a library right there. And I entertained myself reading, many things. But then Bigfoot, there was a section about that big of Bigfoot, and I read it and I threw it down. And I said, "That's hogwash. That is bull." And I even asked my father, and if you remember, I'm a third generation tracker. My father was a great woodsman, and his father before that, and he said it's just a wives' tale. It's just told to scare kids. It's nothing to it. And I accepted that. I believed in it so hard that when I had my first encounter, after that I had 2 years of nightmares because what wasn't supposed to be there was there. Okay? And that was hard on me. And I understand disbelief because it took me 14 years to really talk about it. To my best friend. For my best friend, for me to talk to my best friend, to open it up and say, this is what the reality of the situation is that I find. And I had been researching that whole time, and had my head wrapped around the subject of this is real. And, it took a long time.
Sure. And if you could, maybe if you could elaborate on your first encounter and sort of give me the Reader's Digest on, where I'm going with that. Like
Yeah.
what that made you, like the mindset it put you in.
I didn't see it coming. I was deer hunting. I was having a great day. It was a rare day off, so it was a real treat for me to be out, because, I was training kids, and I had just a busy schedule, and I finally had a day to myself to the woods, and I was hunting, and I finished that day out hunting, and it wasn't quite dark, the sun was on the horizon, and I get down, and I'm about a mile back or better, and on my hike out, when I was in my stand, something came by me, but I didn't know what it was. But I heard the knocks, the three knock out of hearing. And I just thought it was a buck with the antlers like this running through the brush, and it was and the brush was hitting the antlers going knock 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 knock. That's what I equated it to. And I get down, I stash my stand because I don't have my flashlight on me. I forgot it, and I'm walking between these two, in this valley of these two peaks around me, and I'm picking my way up through there, and I'm completely relaxed. I'm thinking about dinner. I'm thinking about what I'm gonna eat, and I wanted either steak or shrimp or both, and I couldn't decide. And I got hit with something that stopped me in my tracks. I didn't know what it was, but I calmed myself down. And I said it's no big deal. It just felt like something was staring at me, and so I turned to the right and I start picking my way up this hill, and 2 feet go out and away from me and circle back into me, and they're paralleling me, and it was hard to catch. I actually took a half a step and looked and caught her in mid-flight, coming from behind one tree and bouncing behind another. And you cannot get that image out of your head. You know, it's there. It's burnt. You can't get it out. And I almost fell because I was shocked. And I'm start jogging up this hill. What is this? How do I get away from it? What's it want? You know, and finally I realized that it's going to intercept me up in the road with its position of where it is. And so I needed to change the timing and the position of that. The only way to change that is speed. And so I was listening for her to pause to determine which direction I was going. When she paused, I leapt out and I took off running, changing that intercept point. And she runs up to the road. You know, I passed the intercept point by about another 15 yards. She runs up to the road and scuffs her feet. I'm terrified, but I'm keeping, you know, I'm remaining calm for the most part, but I'm running for my life, and I'm really running, and she catches me, and she's right beside me in the woods, 12 feet away from me, in broad daylight running, and we run down this road like this for a mile, okay, or almost a mile, about 50 yards. Before we get to the trailhead, the brush actually starts peeling off. And she peeled and stayed in the brush and ran a circle around the brush, and I passed right in front of her through the brush at the trailhead and leapt out to my truck. And that was broad daylight. Okay. A myth and a wives' tale, that something that was not supposed to be there, something I didn't even think of, nothing that was even in my mind, not even a concept of, chased me out of the woods all the way to my truck. And I got in my truck, I threw it in second gear, I throw gravel everywhere getting out of there, and I throw my Mountain Dew. I had my Mountain Dew in my pocket. I pull it out and I throw it in the floorboard and laugh at myself. That was a hallucination. There's no way that happened. So, yeah, that was that's a cursory review of the first encounter I've had.
Yeah, so it's that whole Mountain Dew part that really fascinates me, because the first time I heard it, like, I was struck by it. I was like, huh, doesn't, you know, that sounds genuine to me. So so that was your first take. That was like you're giving your honest first take of starting to examine what happened to you in your own brain. And the first thing you thought of was that somebody put something in my freaking drink.
Yeah.
And that what just happened didn't actually happen. There's no way it happened.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that stuck with you for a while, did it not? From what I remember.
I was on that road most every night of the week for the next 2 years, running down that road, and a nightmare. That's when I slept. You know, I didn't sleep a lot, and my reasoning, how I reasoned this out, was that, you know, all the looking into this phenomenon, People have it happen one time, and that's it. Never again the rest of their life do they ever have that happen to them. And so whether it was real or whether it wasn't didn't matter. I can repress it as just a bad memory, something weird happened in the woods. It'll never happen again, and move on with my life. I still did some armchair. I was still interested, still looking into stuff. But as far as letting it bother me as being anything real, I repressed it. And then for a couple of years, I was good. But I'm a primitive living skills instructor, primitive survivalist. I teach my sons a lot of stuff, and my son and I were going hunting, and I had a second encounter, and that's when I deemed this a phenomenon. That this is a phenomenon that people will believe that something is in the woods, and it has to be debunked. And that's where I really started the studying how to debunk them.
Okay, so you actually spent time in the woods trying to debunk something.
Yeah.
And how's that debunking going for you?
That ended in 2011. In 2011, that's when she walked into the firelight, and the three of us see it, and we get in the truck and we leave. And in the back of my mind, the thing is I don't know what she wanted. I don't know what her thought process is. I don't know if there's any humanity in them, because I don't see them as human, but they're not animal either. They're just a primitive being, and primitive beings can be, from what we consider, ruthless. Yeah. The common norm does not live in them. And knowing that from a primitive survival standpoint, I've always been, very leery of them. And the first question that enters my mind when I see one is, God, I hope it's not hungry. That's real, and I know I catch flack for saying that, but that's the first thing that comes through my damn mind. So,
well, can I ask you a couple more questions real quick, Patrick?
Yeah.
And we can kind of fly through them if you want, and they don't have to be extremely long, but whatever. Why don't people take pictures of them? Everyone has a camera in their pocket now, as opposed to 50 years ago when the Patterson-Gimlin film was shot. Why don't people take pictures of them?
I can give you three things, 3 times. First time, I got a picture of it. I was in a boat going down the creek. There it is. I pull my iPhone out, it starts running, I snap a picture, and it's a blob squatch. Okay. Second time, I'm set up because I know where the juvenile's going to be at. I've timed him, and so I get set up in some ferns, and he comes and jumps a dim road, and another hunter shoots him or shoots at him. I'm not sure which, but it ruined that moment. And then about a year later, that same juvenile, I'm standing on the levee of a pond about 4 miles from where that shoot had happened, and I'm fishing. And I look at the end of the levee, and he's there. I think he's there. And I'm looking, and it's him. And he's all dark. He's almost coal black. And I'm looking at him. He's against the green grass. And I slip my hand in my pocket, get my phone out, and he's gone. He ducks down, he's gone. And there's just nothing I could have done with that. So, yeah, I mean, they watch your hands. That's the one rule I've learned is they watch your hands. They want your hands empty, or at least have only what they understand in it. And in my area, they understand a fishing pole. But you have anything else in your hand, it ain't gonna happen.
Right. And that's the other thing I wanted to ask you, and it ties into things being in your hands. Well, why is it, Patrick, when a hunter happens to be out there hunting and one comes across him and reveals himself, why doesn't the hunter just shoot it?
That is, I had a gun in my hand a couple times. I've never felt compelled to take one's life. It has my nose. Okay, when you look at it and it has something that has your nose, you don't want to shoot it, or at least I don't. You know, I've heard people say they shot one, and that's just a whole other psychosis to me. But you know, I would have a hard time shooting one unless it was, I had to. And the first encounter I had a plan to, if this happens, then I'm going to have to pull the trigger. But that never happened. So I didn't have to pull the trigger. And yeah, it's a strange and complicated thing.
Yeah, and we know that there's plenty of hunters that have seen them. So guys that either had a gun slung over their shoulder or right there, ready to aim, and for whatever reason they don't. But I'm just trying to get the side, of the story of that's actually a thing, and here's why,
Well, well, I was trained to be ethical. I'm trained to be careful what I shoot, the background that is behind it when I shoot, what I shoot, and how I use what I shoot. I use everything I can of the life I take. I don't take taking lives lightly. I know there's a lot of people that go out and bang bang shoot everything dead, but I don't. Okay, well, if I take a life, that's a serious thing, and I use its life to forward mine, and I respect it. And for me to turn around and want to kill one of these things that has my nose, something I've looked in its eyes and I've seen it thinking, it's a complicated thing.
And how confident do you think the typical hunter firepower, would be effective against something that size?
I think if you shoot one, they might find your rifle in a pile of blood. That'd be about it, honestly.
Even with like a, you know, 30-06 or whatever.
It depends on it all goes with shot placement.
Sure.
However, people who are startled don't have the best shot placement. So if you gut shot wound gut shoot one or shoot it in a lung, it's going to have a minute or two to do what it wants to you. And they kill for a living. They run things down and kill for a living. They are proficient killers with their bare hands. And you're going to gut shoot one, and you can do the math on that.
Okay.
Now, could I force science if I was given good scientific reason? If there's a disease going around and one needs to be taken so that it can be studied and to beat a disease to try to save its species, I could go out and I could take one out under those circumstances or something similar. But to just go murder one, I'd rather dart one. To be honest, I'd rather go out and dart one. That would be my thing.
Yeah, but what about? And this is another thing that I think is um, responsible. It would be almost responsible to assume. What if there's more?
Oh, there are.
Watching, right, right there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I've only tracked. I've tracked one that was alone. So that scenario does exist, and so that would be the scenario that I would look for. I'm not going to go pick on one that has a 6 family members sitting there behind a tree watching. I mean, that's suicide.
yeah,
So, and it would take a lot more resources than I have. I mean, it would take the resources of a private corporation or the United States military to actually get it out. You'd have to have a chopper come in with a cargo net and have several guys to roll into a cargo net and chopper it out to a secure location. You're not just going to pack that thing out on your back.
I agree, and this is the point in the conversation where I'm going to start opining a little bit. Is that I mean, any knee jerk skeptic that says, well, there's hunters in the woods, they have guns, why don't they just shoot them? There's so much ignorance to that. It's like, well, you're a guy that's probably not been in the woods very much, probably never hunted, and probably never shot a gun. You don't know what you're talking about. So it's hard to battle that ignorance without coming across very flippant the way I just did. You know what I mean? So,
Well, I understand that people want this. People want to know. People want, and I understand the burden of proof that is, has to be answered to.
yeah,
However, I believe I believe if you use technology, through technical ways, I think it'd be better than actually going out and getting a body. At least you won't need a pack of Navy SEALs to keep one off your ass from killing you when
yeah,
you try to drag it
right.
out. Know what I mean?
And that would
So
also be an interesting experiment.
yeah,
And
yeah.
no one's ever tried it that I know of, right? Yeah.
Well,
No.
if you, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, what runs a deer down on foot?
And that's the other thing. That's so when some of the curious questions come up from some of even the more open-minded skeptics, they're very curious how an animal like that would kill and eat a deer. And I can understand, I could wrap my head around how they kill it with their long stride. They would be very fast. Obviously, they're very adapted to um, their habitats, where they like to be. But how would they eat it? Like, I mean, do you think any kind of simple tool comes into play, or do they just bore down on it like a vampire? Like, how would
That
they
would be
eat a deer?
that would be pure speculation on my point. I can say that they use it. I believe, and I have heard the percussions of tools in their hands. Wood knocks. It's not a hand slap. It's
Right.
wood knocks. So if they can use a piece of wood to knock with, who knows what they can use to disarticulate a body with? I don't know. That would take pure speculation on my part, though.
Do you think that they would have the strength to just start like ripping things apart to some degree? Like,
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they?
yeah.
I mean, if you put a dead deer in front of me and I was hungry, I promise you I'll find a way to get it apart.
Have you ever come across any kind of like what people might would call a boneyard that that's
I,
made you scratch your head a little bit?
I haven't found a bone yard, but I did find a jawbone that was chewed on and dropped in a track while I was tracking one. And this weekend, I found a pile of oyster shell where, and it wasn't it wasn't, I might be careful how I say this because I can't establish. I can establish that there was inconclusive, compelling tracks leading to a pile of oyster shell that an otter left. And what was there stuck its heel down the embankment, grabbed an otter shell, and was walking around with this otter shell and dropped the otter shell in its track because it had the mother of pearl in it of not the oyster shell. It walked down and got the oyster shell from the pile of oyster shells that otter left there, and was walking around with the oyster shell and left it in its track from the mother of pearl that was in the oyster shell.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And so finally, dude, are you lying to me?
No.
I mean, come on, be straight. Here's your chance to come clean. All
All right.
right. You'll feel so much better about yourself if you're if you're fucking lying to me, I did not mean to cuss tonight, but come on, just what? Huh?
I could accept that I can accept that everyone has a mass hallucination where we're seeing tracks and casting tracks. I can accept that, but I'm not lying. Now you can say I'm full of shit, or you can take me as I'm telling the truth, but you can't tell me I'm wrong because I have demonstrative evidence of tracks, casted tracks, and the eye shine of what was in the field that multiple people witnessed this thing walking through a field. So
Right, and just to be clear, you don't have any kind of like any kind of heavy monetization in the Bigfoot world. So everything you've talked about tonight is not any kind of like money maker for you. Just talking about it.
I don't even have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
in my
great.
primitive
That's
in my in my primitive survival group, I'm there as an asset. I'm not a competitor. In this group, I'm the same thing. I'm an asset.
I agree.
I track for people for free. Okay, I don't make any. It actually cost me money. I spent $400 to fail this weekend. Okay, yeah, I spent $400 to get pictures of like 4 tracks, some oyster shell,
Yeah.
and then some sketchy trail cam footage. You know, actually, it wasn't even footage. It was just a single image when it was set on video. So it cost me money.
Sure. And along those lines, um, is it possible that anyone went out there before you to try and hoax a Bigfooter into thinking there were Bigfoot tracks out in the area you were looking? What's the likelihood of that?
0.001.
So virtual zero.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows where I'm going until I get there. You know, I was on 1,500 acres of private land, and the landowners actually just showed up. They'd be gone a while. They just showed up the night before, at night when it was raining, and went to bed. And when I got there, then they went and started. They went. They had their own plans to do, and myself and my tracking partner went tracking, and no one knew where we were going. Not even my tracking partner. So for someone to just pick the right spot, I mean, they'd have to hoax everywhere, all on there, for me to, you know.
So
And
it'd have to be an army of hoaxers
yeah, and I
and good
tracked.
ones too, right?
Yeah.
That did not leave any tracks themselves.
Well, not only that, but ones that can create tracks with the morphology that lines up with all the tracks that I've tracked. And uh, on this particular property, there's 2 of them that have strange deformity of the feet where the feet curve. There's a larger one and a smaller one that have deformity through the curved feet. And I tracked those a year ago, casted them, and the larger one's the one we saw in the field, the one we witnessed walking through the field. We had his eye shine from the camera shining behind us looking at it in the field with the eye shine, and then we casted its tracks out there with the curved feet. And I also have those same tracks in sand from last year, and I also have those same tracks in mud from this weekend. I can take this track from the sand last year and this track in the mud this weekend and put them side by side, same individual. And the casted tracks from last year match that as well. And there's another casted track from September that the landowners casted and took to a wildlife biologist and showed him, and he said, "Well, this is the most likely potential Bigfoot track I've ever seen, because all the other ones I've seen are that have been manufactured. They're all fake, but this is what the real ones look like."
Mm.
So,
And how'd he feel about that?
the landowner knows. Okay, he had an experience. He watched one kill a deer. Okay, he just could not accept it. He couldn't wrap his mind around it, and so I was called in the track and to find out exactly. You know, it really was just to second chair his already made observations. You know, because he couldn't wrap his head around what was there, just like I was, and And that person expressed to me, I had a hard time with this, but now that I know, and I can relax a little bit.
And okay, so that's interesting as well. People do actually struggle with this. I'll say generally, and just beyond your own like experience there, just you and the landowner. I'm sure you've heard other people, and even know people personally. I would imagine that the very first thing that sort of happens is people struggle with it. They in a weird, strange irony, they almost try and convince themselves they saw something else that then they actually saw, but end up coming back to, well, no, what I saw is what I saw. That
Yeah.
wasn't a bear. Is that fair?
Yeah, because the only representation in my Rolodex of animals, and I had to reach way back there in that Rolodex to pull this one forward, was the cover of that book I read in the library of Bigfoot. That was the only picture image that come up that this thing matched, and it's a myth. It's the wives' tale. It doesn't supposed to be there. It isn't supposed to be there. That was the only image I can attach to that for me to have a representation of what to call it. Because it wasn't a human, it wasn't an ape, it wasn't a monkey, it wasn't a giraffe, a pink elephant, or a kangaroo.
It might have been a kangaroo.
No, it was not.
I'm just going to say
If it was a kangaroo, I'd have saddled up and rolled him the rest of the way out of there. You know. I need a break for a second, if you don't
that.
mind.
You get the joke. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, man. All right, interesting discussion. I don't know if there's anybody that wants to talk to Patrick or ask him questions. You could do so in chat, or I'll invite you on the show. Any skeptics that are here that are watching, just let me know. Give me a heads up in chat, or ask your question, or keep talking about all the chat stuff you guys have been going back and forth about. Whatever. Oops. Yeah, good point, Kirk. You don't have to play along here. Like, this is we're trying to be objective. We're not trying to bullshit anybody. Uh, well, thanks, man. Appreciate that. I do. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what, to be honest with you, that's why we don't have like a huge audience. I could do things way differently and probably grow the sub count to 30, 40, 50,000, no problem. So a weem away.
A weem away, a weem away, a weem away, a weem away.
Oh, here's a good question. Now, even though now you're back, this is a good question. I had to turn my camera off again. I'm having Wi-Fi issues tonight. I don't know why. Pat, when you get your drone, will you research alone? Pretty much, yeah. I don't have to. I can. I don't have to worry about. This isn't I'm not trying to approach them with my drone at from even 100 yards away. My drone technique involves being miles away. So the first thing I'm going to do when I put the drone up is look around my surroundings, make sure that there's nothing weird there, right? And then I can go looking and yeah. So I don't really have to worry about them being around me. But I'll try to not be alone because it's always good to have like just somebody with you in the middle of the night wherever you are, if that makes sense. Because I know in my area I'll be up on a lot of overlooks on like very remote mountainous roads, and there's other wildlife around, and you never know. Like hell, the sheriff's office could come driving by, and it'd just be good to have somebody with you. So, but I can do it alone. Yeah. Go ahead, Patrick.
Film, filmer, was it a filmer of
Um,
bobcats? I've never felt safe around them, ever. I don't care who's around. I don't care what's in my hand. I've never ever felt safe around them.
is it fair to say? I mean, they can be quite intimidating when they want to be.
Just their presence is intimidating.
Mm,
The worst part about it is it's the physical part about them is intimidating, but not knowing what's in their mind. They are a predator. Okay, I'm
mm,
pretty good. I'm pretty good in the woods. I'm well trained in the woods. I'm a good predator as far as our species goes, but they're 10 times better than me, and they are a no BS type personality when it comes to survival. And when you're in a survival mode, uh, everything around you is either an asset or an enemy. And for them, that's the way I always classify myself, as either an asset or an enemy to them. But I can say in recent couple of years, I have found them that to be very tolerant. They're very tolerant. They respect life much like I do, and that helps me a little bit. But I still don't feel safe.
so I have a theory,
Yeah.
if you'll indulge
Hmm.
me. Um, this is my theory. That's all it is. Well, it's probably more speculation because I can't really test it. But I think that they almost have to have some kind of understanding of even like no matter how bad they want to hurt this person or kill them, knowing that they could do it with their size, speed, and strength. You know, um, I just think that they have some kind of understanding that more will come.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there are. This place that I was just on, they actually coexist with the landowners there. You know, and it's a very cool. That place itself is an experiment all to its own, without even the tracking, without even the pictures, and these people do have. They do believe they caught something. I know they've caught on thermal. I've seen their thermals. I know they have had them on thermal, but I believe they also have one on daylight at a distance on a camera too. But beyond any of that, just how they coexist on this property, because one end of this, say 200-acre field that has a feeder and a deer stand, that's the human side. If you go tracking down the other side, they actually skirt around the field, and they don't enter the field until they get about 400 yards on the other side of that deer stand, and that's their side they hunt. Okay, the landowner also, she has there's a box stand that she hunts. Well, then about 60 yards down was a trail, and it had broke brush off and brushed off that trail, you know, to divert animals to another area that it wanted to go to. So, you know, they coexist. And I've seen that. I've witnessed it. I've tracked them doing it, and it's a very experiment on itself.
I would have to think that that's somewhat of an anomaly when it comes, you say when it comes to the Sasquatch phenomena, like itself, so let's just say, assuming their existence in North America, from your area all the way up into, say northern Canada, right? That has to be just kind of an anomaly. I don't think that those situations like are common.
Actually, actually, I can kind of prove that the other way, or
Really?
at least with my experiences, because you hear the few people that have abandoned their farms and their houses and moved. That's a small percentage of the areas that we're in, right? In our communities, very few people abandon their houses because Sasquatch is being too mean.
Right.
On the national forests, they share areas. Okay, when you walk in, you can find where they've been at, you can find the tracks, but they already beat it back to their address across a barrier that you're not going to cross. So they're sharing the area. They're being mindful of your use of the land as well as their own, and they're managing that without you knowing. Okay, so I think their tolerance is more to the norm than their intolerance.
Interesting. So Nikki wants to know, so I'm just going to go there. I'm just going to turn this corner real quick. I mean, do you have you ever found Bigfoot scat that you think was Bigfoot scat?
I think I found some this weekend, honestly, but you got to understand, I barely survived an infection from fecal bacteria some years ago, so I don't go diving into that kind of crap. But I have found this fecal material had deer hair and hog hair in it,
Oh
and
wow!
yeah, so
What predator?
I don't know too many predators can have dual large animal hair in it. I mean, I guess it could have been maybe a scavenger, but I don't think it was because this was like a pound of crap.
Yeah, I was about to say, what was the size? Would it be
Yeah,
something that could even come out of a coyote?
yeah, it was about a pound of crap that was in an area that it's their kill box is what I call it because they have
I'm not even sure coyotes could kill a wild boar, could they?
I don't know. I know they can kill fawns, but I don't know if they can. I'm just thinking if one stumbled up upon a carcass, they could eat on one. But
It's true. Yeah.
you'd have to have a scenario where you have a dead pig carcass and a dead deer carcass, and then I just found and I found the one coyote that can crap a pound. You know,
Yeah.
but as far as what they eat, I have tracked them chasing deer down multiple times. I've tracked little Sam chasing a deer. Actually, I started tracking the deer first because I saw the deer running across the field, the tracks. And I'm tracking these tracks and I found out what predator's behind it. Well, guess what? Little Sam steps in an anthill. That's him. He's running a deer down. Also in Mississippi, I track a deer who's walking casually, and then a Bigfoot the tracks of what we call the phenomenon of Bigfoot comes in behind it, and there's a turning fight to get started, and the deer's hooves are kicking, you know, trying to get loose, and this heel impression is circling. They went around 3 times, and then the deer breaks loose and takes off running. And then these tracks take off running after it. The deer jumps across a creek, lands in on a sandbar, takes 2 steps, and then the bipedal tracks. I'm trying not to label it too much. The bipedal tracks land on the sandbar, and the deer tracks disappear. And the bipedal tracks step off of that sandbar onto the next embankment and take off walking.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, I tell you what, bro. I think this has been a interesting, healthy discussion. I mean, you know where I'm going with this. Like, I'm, just full disclosure. Patrick and I are friends. We're not like BFFs, but we're acquaintances. And I appreciate you being here tonight to answer those questions as openly and honestly as you can, and to kind of tolerate some of my some of my tone of asking them.
I'm used to it.
Which I felt like was an appropriate thing to do. But that's I've taken that hat off, and thanks for being here, man. And so I would just want to close it out like basically like this, man, and give you the floor for however long you want it towards the end of the show here to say just in general to the skeptics, and the type I'm talking about. And I'm not a skeptic bash here tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
I understand where they're coming from. It's a weird balance. Sometimes we can get a little passionate about things, but I'm trying to keep good discourse in the mix and represent this phenomenon in a way that maybe they've never seen it. So I'll give you the floor, Patrick, to say what you will, man, towards people, who are skeptics that we've kind of bared witness to lately.
All right. Well, first off, you cannot be biased and call yourself a scientist. You can't. You cannot come from this doesn't exist. I don't care what you think you've seen, heard, or evidence you have. Okay, if someone comes at me that way, I have nothing to say to you. You're not a scientist. Also, on the other spectrum of the scope, the other end of that spectrum, you can't come to me with non-factual information and say, this is the way it is, and I don't believe a damn thing you say, Patrick, because I want to believe what I want to believe because it makes me feel good because I believe it. Okay, I don't pander to either side of those. It's the reality of the situation. And I don't mean anything derogatory. It's just the reality of the situation is what we're serving here. We're not serving man. We're not serving science. We're not serving woo. We're not serving our egos or what we want things to be. It is the reality of the situation that you have to get into. And the only way you're going to do that is getting your ass out there in the woods and actually learning something yourself. Okay? Now, that said, well, hell, I'm good.
All right, man. Okay. Well, hopefully we will be able to engage in those discussions more in the future. I missed my opportunity of the other night. I should not have done that after show. I should have went to the other one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Absolutely. I would have been surrounded, but man, I'm very comfortable in that environment, especially when it's just on me and I have to think fast on my feet.
Yeah.
I don't have any other distractions going on. Just me having to think on my feet, and I would have done well there. So yeah, I'm gonna engage with this as much as I can. Yeah.
Well, my problem is they confuse and substitute witty humor for something that's substantial, and it's not.
I agree, but I tell you this, dude. I watched that a few times.
Yeah.
So the after show, Amy's after show for the after the Bigfoot debate the other night with Meldrum
Mm-hmm.
and Erica. Um, I watched it a few times, and man, there was definitely some things. I mean, my name was brought up more than once, and a couple of times in an unfair way. Um, and that's fine, dude. Again, I wasn't there to engage. It was just sort of off the cuff. Um, Abstract sort of like generalization type stuff going on, and then that was the kind of thing going on with the whole Bigfoot phenomenon again.
Mm-hmm.
uh, for whatever reason that these guys decided to be in the show, it could have just been they were inspired to talk about it because it was a topic that night.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, I'm reaching out, I'm trying to engage more, I'm trying to get people like that to actually come in and have more of a discussion with good discourse, not dumpster fire stuff. We're not flat earthers.
Yeah.
We are not flat earthers. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you are definitely. This show is definitely carving out a niche for itself. It's in between the worlds, and there's growing pains, and there's people that don't like it, and there's people that love to see it fail. I hear it in their voice and their tone on their own shows. But the thing is just, you know, that's just human nature, to resist change. And you are changing things to, a different attitude towards research. And we don't care if you feel good about something. You're asking the hard questions. You're wanting the hard answers. You're trying to find the right questions to ask and really move the ball downfield in getting this thing recognized and finding the real truth about it. So carving that niche out is kind of a painful thing, but it's successful. I think that's why you've had 30% growth. You know.
It is. It's a little painful. I'm not gonna lie. I miss what is fast becoming the good old days of
Mm-hmm.
just sitting back and like we're around the campfire, talking about Bigfoot, like me and Ernie used to do, 5, 6 years ago before I really even stuck a pinky toe in the Bigfoot world.
Yeah.
I kind of miss those days. It was more fun and relaxing. And
I
yeah, things are
didn't.
getting a little more serious now, but I think they need to.
Well, see, I never had that. I never had that fun, relaxing thing. This is not fun for me. Okay. I mean, I spent a significant portion of my life one on one, or maybe two on two, or two on one in the dark with these things studying. It wasn't fun, and so it's always been serious for me. You know, and
Yeah.
I do have my feel good show I like to go watch. When I come home and I see, oh, this has been broadcast, I like to plug in and feel good about things. But then that gets us nowhere. Okay,
I agree.
all that gets us is I feel good about something. It doesn't create a catalyst for learning and education and get the ball downfield. So
I agree. So I'm going to wrap it up, but in closing, I'll say this. Because I'll share this around to as many people in the skeptical community as possible, man. This is a place where I like you're welcome as a skeptic. It won't be a dumpster fire. You won't get ganged up on, even if you decide to come on in a panel discussion or something, and you're the only skeptic there. Um, I'm really, really trying to break through or do some kind of outreach, over the Bigfoot community, to be honest with you, um, to the skeptic world, the scientific world, the professional world, the people like Erica, um,
mm-hmm.
and others, to show a different side to this phenomenon, that is, I assure you, exists. And we're not sure what it is. You know, it could be a head scratcher for us, but again, I assure you it exists. I'm a skeptic too. So you guys are welcome here anytime. Um, and I hope to grow that. And I just want the discussion to get bigger, broader, and and more just more inclusive to people outside the Bigfoot world. It's a safe place to do that. You know,
Yeah.
we're not weirdo rednecks running around with AR-15s, even though we have AR-15s, but still. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, if you're a real person, really curious, really wanting answers, really pushing for answers, and you have the right questions to ask, because I don't have all the right questions, bring me the right questions so that maybe I can come up with a hypothesis, develop a theory, and try to test those things, you know, to get the ball downfield. And that's whether you're a Bigfooter or a skeptical science person. I mean, yeah, we want that, you know.
we do.
Yeah.
Just the only thing I ask is that you don't flippantly call us liars or hallucinators. That's not. Those aren't roads I'm going to go down. I'm not gonna argue
That's
about
his
whether.
job.
Yeah.
That's his job.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I do call. Yeah. So I'm not gonna go down roads of trying to prove if people are lying about what they're talking about or whether they're hallucinating what they're talking about. You know, if I know they're not schizophrenic, then they're probably not hallucinating. Um, and they're definitely not hallucinating because somebody wrote a story about a giant 1,500 years ago. That's not a thing either. So I'm gently taking those arguments off the table the best I can with
Yeah.
this presentation, and not trying not to be inappropriate or conceited about it. But
Yeah.
but as it is, that's where we're at. And this was a great discussion, Patrick. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
It couldn't have went better. And I really, really appreciate you being here. I appreciate the viewers being here. Thanks, guys. Thanks, chat. You were kind of interesting tonight. And um, yeah, I'm not going to answer that right now, Nikki. I don't want to go into that. But yeah, we'll do it again, man, this Friday. We'll see what happens. Maybe I can come up with a cool guest or something. Maybe a cool skeptic guest. We'll see.
Yeah, because I'm just chopped liver.
Well, you'll be there. I'm sure you'll be there. I didn't say I wasn't inviting you. What are you talking about?
I'm picking on you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a cool guest. Oh, yeah.
I'm not cool at all. Oh, shit.
None of us are cool. None of us.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't sit at the cool table. I was actually a nerd.
Me neither. Me neither, man.
I was
had
a 200.
I had to invent my own cool table. But
I was
that's a different story. Yeah.
I was a 225-pound, 6'2" tall nerd
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't call nerd.
There you go. There's the important part, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up, bud. And thanks
All
for
right.
being here so much. And
My pleasure.
yeah, we'll see you on Friday, I'm sure.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. See you.